I really do believe that 2026 is the best year yet to start investing, or if you're already an investor, the best year to continue investing. And no, it's not because I think 2026 is going to be a brilliant year for the markets. I have no way of knowing. It could turn out to be a terrible year. We could lose money on our investments this year. But the reason why investing has never looked more appealing is because it's never been cheaper or easier to invest. We're right in the middle of a fee war, an all-out fee war between investment platforms and fund providers. And over the last couple of years and continuing into 2026, we're just seeing costs go lower and lower. It really has never been cheaper to be an investor. Fees are super important, of course, as John Bogle, the founder of Vanguard, stated, in investing, you get what you don't pay for. What he's referring to here is that unlike with other things where if you pay more, you might get a better service, might get better experience, better performance, when it comes to investing, actually keeping your costs low, keeping more of your money in your own pocket is beneficial because every £1 you pay in fees is £1 less in your portfolio that can compound over time. And there's not much evidence of added value in the sense that you can pay a platform or pay a fund provider to actually add value in the sense that they can beat the market. There's not much evidence of that, but that's a topic for another video. In this video, we'll do a deep dive into the fee war, start off with the fund providers, then the investment platforms, and just show how it really is the cheapest year yet to be an investor. But importantly, at the end, I'll also cover how in 2026, there is one way in which investing has become harder. So make sure you stay to the end to hear that. Okay, so starting off with what we can actually invest in, the ETFs, the investment products. So ETFs, exchange traded funds, are a super popular way to invest because they allow us to get that instant diversification, buy a share of an ETF, and we're getting exposure to hundreds or thousands of companies, bonds, whatever it may be. And there's loads of different types of ETFs. But the thing is, we've seen so much competition between the providers, which has just lowered and lowered the fees that we have to pay on these products. So starting off with S&P 500 ETFs, there's now S&P 500 ETFs with fees as low as 0.03% for UK and European investors. The SPDR and UBS S&P 500 ETFs, for example, have 0.03% total expense ratios. Then when we look at global funds that contain stocks from both developed and emerging markets, a few years ago, we only had a few global funds to choose from, and we had the Vanguard FTSE All World with a 0.22% total expense ratio, and then the iShares MSCI All Country World, I think, was 0.2%. And these were the only options. But then in the last couple of years, we've seen Invesco launch their FTSE All World, 0.15% total expense ratio. Then we saw SPDR cut the fee on their MSCI All Country World Index ETF from 0.4% to 0.12%, a massive fee cut. And then also we've seen Amundi launch a global ETF, Amundi Prime All Country World, with a ridiculously cheap 0.07% total expense ratio. And then keep on going. In the past few months, we've seen Vanguard cut the fee on their FTSE All World, their FTSE All World ETF from 0.22% to 0.19%. So you get my point. We've just seen fees only going one way, and this is all thanks to competition. Fund providers really have to compete for assets under management now because we have all these choices, and fees are kind of the main distinguisher between them. Yes, they track slightly different indexes and different distribution policies and different replication methods. I'm by no means saying that lowest fee is a guarantee of better performance, but in general, lower fees is a good thing for investors. And if this increased competition continues to bring fees down, that is only a good thing in my eyes. This isn't a video deep diving into ETFs. So the last category I'll go over is NASDAQ 100 ETFs. We've seen NASDAQ 100 ETFs launch recently with 0.13% total expense ratio. And a few years ago, NASDAQ 100 ETFs were actually comparatively quite expensive, and you only really had the Invesco and iShares options with 0.3% plus total expense ratios. So in general, across the categories of ETF, increased competition, lowering fees, and this is an incredibly good thing for investors. Linking to this, I do actually have a monthly updated ETF cheat sheet, which helps you find and compare ETFs with ease. It has different pages for developed markets, emerging markets, global, UK, US, and ETCs. And it's just a quick way to compare the fund details and initiate your research. If you'd like to gain free access to it, I'll leave a link to my mailing list in the description below. The last thing I want to say about ETF fees is that a couple of years ago, I didn't mind paying 0.3%, 0.4% for an ETF if I liked the idea of the strategy. But nowadays, when we can get index trackers for just so incredibly cheap, it makes those other strategies that charge slightly higher fees just less appealing to me. When I can get a global fund for so cheap, I really have to sit back and think, do I want to pay an extra 0.2, 0.3 percentage points in fees for a strategy that may not even work out or outperform in the long run anyway? And it just really makes me second guess. And I think we should all sit back now when we look at any ETF and think, are these extra fees justified? Because in some places it may well be. We may like the strategy they're implementing. We may want that specific tilt or style of ETF in our portfolio. in which case it may be worth, or you may be happy to pay the slightly extra fees. But in general, when there's so much competition, we really have to sit back and think, am I being taken advantage of here? Do I really need to pay these fees? Okay, moving on now onto the platform wars. So I'm starting to think in the UK, there's just so many investment platforms now, so many good investment platforms with low fees. And thanks to competition from up and coming providers like Trading 212, Invest Engine, Lightyear, XTB, that have super low fees, the established platforms have had to take notice because obviously these established platforms must be seeing these newer platforms getting loads of new customers whilst they're struggling to attract new customers or retain customers. And they've had to cut their fees as well. So just to do a quick whistle-stop tour of some of the fee cuts we've seen Interactive Investor change their plans. So I have to say some of these are fee restructurings rather than the fee cuts, but I think overall the Interactive Investor fee changes are going to make things cheaper for a lot of people. Another big one is free trade. So free trade a few years ago were free, it was in the name, but then they introduced account fees and it wasn't too popular anymore. But now they've cut the fees on their ISA and SIP. So they have a free SIP, which is incredible. And that is just now a super competitive option as well that investors have to look at. There's IG as well. IG have a really low cost stocks and shares ISA now as well. I've also seen in the news that AJ Bell are removing their regular buy fee. So that can make AJ Bell a super cheap option because if they remove their regular buy fee, and I think they have a pretty low fee cap on their stocks and shares ISA as well. So the combination of the low fee cap and the no regular buy fee, if you're an automated investor just monthly depositing into your portfolio, it's a super cheap platform, especially considering that they have telephone customer support and it has that established name that people look for. So I know that some people don't like the newer platforms because there's no telephone customer support and it's not established. So the fact that you can now get an established name for pretty cheap as well is something to look into for those who value that telephone customer support. And lastly, this is a bit of a strange one. HL have restructured their fees as well. But it's a strange one really, because they've actually made their stocks and shares ISA more expensive for a lot of people. HL will be cheaper for brand new investors when these fees get introduced, but for those with medium to large portfolios in their stocks and shares ISA, it's a significant fee increase. They've increased their fee cap from £45 to £150. So although the headline account fee is dropping from 0.45% to 0.35%, obviously the massive increase in that fee cap is going to lead a lot of investors paying more for their stocks and shares ISAs. Their SIP is slightly cheaper. They've reduced their trading fees. However, I personally thought that their trading fees were not a big deal because they had zero trading fees for regular buys, direct debit. So if you set up a direct debit, monthly deposits, you never paid these trading fees anyway. I wasn't too sure whether I was going to include HL in this video because it doesn't perfectly fit my point of a fee war driving costs down, but it is a fee restructuring, leaves some people better off, some people worse off. But in general, it kind of illustrates my point of platforms are paying attention to their idea. They have to restructure their fees at the very least because there is so much competition. And if you don't like HL's fee structure, well, it doesn't really matter too much because now there's so many different options. You have no reason to stay with them if you don't like their fee structure. So it's worth looking into the details of every platform. Of course, it's not just about fees, customer support, features, investment range, looking to all those things. But again, it has never been cheaper to be an investor in the UK than in 2026. So it really is that fee war that leaves me thinking 2026 is the best year yet to start investing. However, I did say I do believe that investing has become harder in one way, and that is the psychology of investing. Nowadays, there's just so many distractions, 24-hour news cycles, social media, the good and the bad, constant notifications on our phone from our investment platforms, newsfeed, new ETF launches every week, and the constant temptation of FOMO, fear of missing out. We see something shoot up, we get notifications about it, and we don't want to miss out. And with a lot of these apps making it super easy to buy and sell investments, it has never been easier to make stupid decisions or decisions we regret and react to news that we otherwise may not have reacted to. So this is something we have to be aware of investors. The competition between providers and platforms is driving the fees down. It's never been cheaper, but the discipline is still on us. We have to remain disciplined. And for all those reasons that I've just mentioned, it is super hard to remain disciplined. For every sensible content creator, sensible news article that we read, there's going to be plenty of dodgy content creators pushing individual stocks and plenty of news articles that are designed to get us to click and feel like we're missing out on a stock or a certain sector that's soaring. Therefore, in my opinion, in 2026, the biggest threat to your investing success is not the fees you're going to have to pay. It's never been cheaper to be an investor. It's the ability to stick with your plan. And we just have to try and ignore all the noise That has never really changed with investing. Ignoring the noise has always been crucial to investors, but it's never been harder. Just to give a few more examples to go into a bit more detail, with ETFs, we see new ETFs launched every week. And whilst choice is good, it's also incredibly bad because these products aren't necessarily better for investors, offering strategies that may actually enhance our returns or give us better diversification or whatever they claim to do. They actually sometimes just feed into investor psychology and biases, like dividend biases or promising they can limit the downside, covered call ETFs, thematic ETFs, feeding into that FOMO investing, not wanting to miss out on the winning sector. These are all things that can distract from our core investing plan. And whilst I'm not saying these strategies have no place in anyone's portfolio, I'm just saying that for most investors, we probably don't need all these additional ETFs that get launched all the time. Another good example is over the past year, we've seen the gold and silver prices absolutely soar, and everyone's talking about it. And for everyone who's made money on that, that is amazing. Honestly, you must have had some incredible returns. But for those who have felt like they've missed out, just be careful of FOMO investing. Gold and silver is the latest thing, but every single year, there is something that soars, something that there'll be headlines about, this is outperforming. And we just have to be careful. We can't always be chasing the top performing thing because I don't know what gold and silver are going to do going forward. And that's the case with pretty much everything, every individual stock, every ETF, every sector. I have no idea what they're going to do. So what I can control is the fees I pay, diversification, and making sure I'm able to stick with a plan because chasing the next big thing can sting you sometimes. So just be careful with that. And sort of linking to this point, the fact we get notifications on our phone every time a stock goes up or the market reaches new all-time highs makes it seem that at the moment that you can't really lose. It makes investing feel easy, especially with the individual stocks. We focus on those notifications of all those stocks that we missed out on. This tech stock has gone up by another 10% and we didn't hold it. And we think, oh, maybe individual stock picking is actually super easy. We're seeing all these winners and we're missing out. So maybe we should go to individual stocks and chase them. We just have to step back and remember there are risks of individual stock picking and the winners really are played up. Of course, the people who invested into Palantir will be on TikTok and Instagram showing off their Palantir returns. But all the people who lost money of individual stocks don't become content creators. They don't become stock picking gurus. So it's a massive survivorship bias that can be hard to see as someone sitting back and watching. Just be careful with that. And I always see that the people who have these big stock wins always end up launching a private community or a course. And what we have to remember is they may have got that one big winner, but have they proven that's a repeatable thing? Can they consistently pick the next big winner? The data on active fund managers and stock picking in general suggests that it is incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to consistently pick the next big thing. So just be careful with all that. But going back, ending on a positive note, if we can remain disciplined, be sensible, and stick to a strategy and style of investing that works for us, invest for the long term with that long-term mindset, I do believe that 2026 is the best year yet for investors.